Greetings, fellow seniors. There are 4 of us here today, even though you're seeing 2 of us, and we are the team that's leading a bringing together of seniors who are multilingual, multicultural, multi-talented, and always with us to teach us and to be part of our conversation. And there are 4 of us who are involved. Dr. Hai Dung Liang is the director of this program for bringing together by using new parts of the brain that we all possess but may not recognize. And then there is Cherise Wong, who will be operationalizing this program and who's behind the camera today. There is Judy Enerson, who will be helping me to share a conversation with you about the MITA brain-based model for bringing us together and allowing us to be freer and even brighter in our senior years because of new parts of the brain we all possess but might not have known about. And my name is Dr. Ellen Weber and have been involved in brain research for the last 50 years, which tells you I am very much a senior, and have worked in 20 countries around the world to win awards for the model we'll be using called the MITA model. We're going to start today by talking about one superpower only in your brain. That might surprise you. Maybe you know about it already. That's great. Either way, we all possess that. We can all teach one another along the way, and we invite your interaction with us in several ways. For instance, we'd like you to get a paper and pencil, because during this time we will pause and we will fill out a form that helps us to bring alive the talents in us and the proclivities in us that we'll be using to operationalize this one superpower. The superpower itself is called intrapersonal IQ, and with that I will pause while you get a paper and pencil if one is near. If not to worry, because these concepts and the completed copies that we'll be using are on my blog at the moment. It's called Brain Leaders and Learners, all one word, brainleadersandlearners.com. And that will be under the topic of Retire Lonely or Lively, number 1, because this is the first of our 20 or so superpowers in your brain that we'll be talking about. So let's face it, situations have changed, and it's not always easy being a senior, and it's not always easy facing the challenges in life with the brains we have. But that could be because we possess more than we're using. And hopefully that'll come alive. Like, for example, the one senior who didn't feel heard, didn't feel listened to, who looked for an apprentice for many years and finally found one and said, "When I take the shoe out of the fire and lay it on the anvil, I'll nod my head and you hit it with the hammer for all you're worth." And that apprentice did exactly as he was told, and now he's the village blacksmith. So that's how we're going to run this. And then, of course, there were the grandparents who had their grandchildren sleep over and wished they could have more brain power just to help out the grandkids. Like the one grandmother who agreed to help with the camp, and when she saw all the boys shoving apples in their pockets and filling up on those apples, she wanted to do something different and asked the boys if they would put one apple only in their pocket. And then she added, "Because God is watching." Made sense to her. Well, the next day she came by the same line and she saw a big plate of chocolate chip cookies with a handwritten note and misspelled words that said, "Take all the apples you want, take all the cookies you want, God's watching the apples." So that grandmother had her way of coping with the new generation of grandchildren. And we're going to talk about what seniors face in a difficult world and how we have exciting ways to be free. And I'm going to ask Judy to bring up one of the concerns that she hears from seniors, and let's then talk about it. What are seniors asking, Judy?
Yes, well, why is it that some seniors retire lonely and others run in retirement with liveliness?
What a good question, because I think we've all found ourselves on both sides of that equation. First thing we do is don't beat up on ourselves according to the brain, because that brings a chemical we'll talk about later that we don't want in our brain. But to have something that I'll call inner kindness. Inner kindness is really, in our case today, interchangeable with the word intrapersonal IQ. If we have a high intrapersonal IQ, we have more common sense. It's not so common after all, but that's intrapersonal IQ. We have more street smarts. We have more inner kindness. We have more willingness to laugh at ourselves. We're more comfortable in our world at every age. We're more kind to other people without being judgmental, because the inner kindness is the highest level emotion that's working within us. So the seniors who retire lonely, I'm sad to say, have a lower intrapersonal IQ. The good news on that is that what we're going to talk today is all of us have low intrapersonal IQ at times, and we're going to show ways to raise it. Show ways to be comfortable with it being higher. And how does that happen? How then does that happen so that I can be retired and be lively alone? I can go for lunch alone. I can have a glass of wine alone. I can love the inner kindness in me enough to be comfortable with it. Does that answer that, Judy?
Yes, that's lovely. How does our inner critic shift from being a critic to a creator with a growth mindset?
That is a loaded question. And it's why I love to be working with you, because you come loaded and ready. And you represent so many seniors I know, and I think I do too, in that we have a hard time going from inner critic to inner kindness, especially without knowing what is a trail that the brain wants to use to take us there. Like, for example, in the wrong way of doing it, which I did for most of my 78 years, I am sad to say, I went about it by trying to fix the inner critic. Forget it. That's not how the brain wants to work. It doesn't want to work that way. But what I've learned through the model we're using and through, again, 50 years of brain research, is that the brain wants inner kindness to itself, so the other fades. A critic is not kind. A critic is judgmental. You say, but I had a critic in my life who was good to me. No, that's not the way the brain works best, nor is it the way the brain grows. So there's something called a growth mindset that we'll be using and trying out on ourselves. And that's flexible, and it's ready to change and ready to give grace to the other human rather than blame, and especially to ourselves. That's the growth mindset. It's flexible, it's open, it rolls with the flow. It doesn't have this set schedule which it must hold on to. It's high quality but never perfectionist. High quality without perfectionism. That's the growth mindset. Judy, I see it in you daily, which is why I love working with you, but it's not in me always. And when I change, I stop fixing and I allow my brain to be the things that's changing, not changing my friends, my family, my partner, or my siblings. Yeah. And so I go after inner kindness with a vengeance. I laugh at myself all the way.
Well, what does IQ have to do with lonely or lively seniors?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because it brings us to the whole idea of why is intrapersonal a big thing. It's one of 8 IQs you and I have, Judy, but only really knew about 2 of them. We knew about math and language, the school tests for those, and might I say wrongly, because all 8 research shows are equal or none is preeminent. So we have 8. We'll be talking in all of our videos, all of our program, about the other 7. Today we're focused on 1, which can be measured and is measured in our actions, not in an IQ test, a paper and pencil test, but in our actions. Did you display inner kindness? Oh, you did? That's high intrapersonal IQ. That's how we measure it. What did that person do? Today, all three of us on the team that's here today, as Hai Dung, our director, is not with us yet, but will be soon. All three of us were met with a test. All three of us came out with high intrapersonal IQ, which was really exciting. We could have blamed one another. We could have been stressed. That's a fixed mindset. That's the thing that I've done in the past and I plan to do in the future. I'm opinionated. I'm perfectionist. I do things perfectly. I judge my neighbors. I'm low in intrapersonal. Why is even that good news? Because it's not about weakness in us. It's about growth area. Intrapersonally low IQ means that's my growth area. I still don't beat up on myself because that makes it lower, but I start to be kinder to myself, at which point it'll happen that I'm kinder to other people by osmosis, because it's in me, it comes out. So, yeah.
Interesting. How do we increase our intrapersonal IQ?
Well, let's take a look at small increments, because we can never do these things in huge increments. And a huge increment would be to know the research that we all have about 80,000 thoughts per day. That's the research. And about those 80 thoughts per day is that about 80% of those thoughts we have are negative. And 80% of those are negative. And so what we have to do is we have to take one negative thought from today, for example, and say, I will wake up with a deliberate mindset to make that into not a problem, but a possibility tomorrow. So we just take one small negative thing or problem or complaint that we have, and we, instead of ruminating on that problem and telling other people about it and constantly going over and beating up on ourselves, we instead make one choice, a different choice to be a growth mindset by making that our solution of the day. And if we start our day with that one thing, maybe the thing that's peskiest to us, and by the end of the day having a solution, we'd be glad to tell a good friend that we honor and trust. Reason I say that we honor and trust is because that friend probably has high intrapersonal IQ, so we'd want to give them a reasonable solution. So we keep it real that way. But even if we don't tell them that we come up with a solution, that is a way to tackle where we are into bringing us to a more growth mindset of where we want to be. Think of it as a growth area and then go after it with a solution.
Okay. Did we have a survey to do at this point?
I think that what we need to do is to stop. I really appreciate that reminder because it's important that we take a pause and that we now use the paper and pencil that we got and we take a look at what our senior strengths might be. So we'll pause again here for just a moment. You can turn the video off and then back on again if this pause is not long enough for you, because we invite you into our conversation and we will be live with you at the end of these suggestions. And we're going to do this interactively. So in the survey below, we're going to spot personal strengths of yours and help you to bring them to the surface. And we'll also identify fears that hold us back. Let me explain just briefly that fear, if it's the mindset we have, will dictate judge other people, beat up on yourself, be negative, never have good enough, be good enough for you. But the opposite of that, you may be surprised, maybe not, is love. Love, a word overused and under-exercised in our society. The real definition of love is the opposite of fear. It's freedom to do things, laugh at ourselves, be kind, be there, and be available to ourselves, to have a conversation with ourselves from a loving perspective and kinder perspective. So in the opposite of fear that holds us back is love that sets us forward. And when we identify those fears, which we all have, then we find our way to a growth mindset. I will give one, Judy will give the second one, I will give the third, and Judy will give the fourth, like that to the end of these. We won't take long. We will allow you half a minute to write your answer if you haven't thought of it. Not to worry, come along with us and we can give you the hard copy at a later point of this interest inventory that we're using. So I will start, Judy, with and senior peers and colleagues with 3 strengths that describe me best are. What would those 3 be for yourself? First thing that comes to your mind, what would you put down? Doesn't need to be right or wrong, just 3 things that pop up when you think of strengths that describe you that others might talk about. Judy?
Things I enjoy doing the most include
I hope in this program to learn more about
someday I would really like to
I enjoy learning new skills most when
if I could improve one weaker area during retirement, I would
I especially like to be praised for
when I do something well,
I wonder a great deal about
I like to be around friends who
something that makes me feel especially confident is
something that worries me is
one thing that bothers me most is
I am especially challenged by
finally the last one thing I know about me is. If you only wrote a couple of things down, that's a couple of new things you might know about yourself. That's what the point of this senior strength survey is, so not to worry about it. And we'll use it again later in the program, so hold on to that, and hopefully we will also come back to how that is useful in helping us to grow a mindset. Now that gets us to the notion of what's fixed, Judy, the 5th one.
Right. So what is a fixed mindset and how does it transform into a growth mindset?
Let me describe what you might have seen in an older person today or last week, not for judgmental purposes, because it could be me you saw it in, and I don't like being judged very much. It doesn't help me. But let me use an example of a fixed mindset. A senior person shows up, or any age, but we see this in seniors at times, shows up and tells you the same story over and over again. Perhaps he or she fought in a war and they tell you the same scene over and over and over again. Or a senior shows up and tells you the same story about how they dropped their coffee last week, or they did something funny, or again and again and again. They're opinionated. They tell the same, they hold on to the same. We aren't very careful to listen hard to other people with an open mind. That's a fixed mindset. It shuts us down, it stops our growth, and it has all kinds of reasons by saying things like, I can't, I won't, it won't. I can never be on time, I'm always late. Those are the statements of a fixed mindset person. The opposite of those, I'll try more. I think I have a new idea. What about this adventure? What if? Those are growth mindset thoughts, ideas, or prompts that your mind gives itself. To get to one from another is inner kindness. Be so kind to yourself that yourself can hardly live with yourself for all the fussing about yourself. and giftedness to yourself that you're giving, and you're already on your way to a growth mindset. Because in that frame, the brain sets itself up to laugh at oneself, not be afraid, be free, get your dopamine going, or your, let's not even use words yet for the other parts of the brain that we'll be talking about. The chemicals in your brain reset themselves for fun, adventure, laughing. Other people want to be around you because you are a higher intrapersonal IQ now with a growth mindset in operation. Does that answer that, Judy, do you think?
Yes, I think that does. That's a good answer. So now we have another little questionnaire.
Thank you, Judy. I really appreciate that. We are going to take a look at our intrapersonal IQ quotient. So just as you can take an IQ test, and while it's not valid for what it says it's valid, it's not telling us who's smart and who isn't. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't. It only tells us partially who's smart and who isn't. It leaves out too many intelligences. And I can prove all of this statistically, and on my blog you see all those research proofs. But what we are going to be talking about is how we can take a look at knowing our intrapersonal IQ levels. How will we know? And we will know by answering A or B to this quotient. The hard copy is on my blog. With those of us for whom you will be live in audiences, we will be giving out the hard copy of this one-pager. But for now, turn over the paper you used for the other survey and we'll simply answer A or B to this survey. Your intrapersonal IQ. Let's find out a little more about yours and mine. I will likely remind us again here to not be hard on yourself by saying I got too many B's. This is not a score like you might get on a math test or an English language arts test, not at all. This is about showing your growth areas. They're good news, not bad news. So when I get B, that's my growth area. That's the area that I now at the age of 93 or 85 can start to grow because the brain is set to do that. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. If you were all A's, we'd say, well, you're already perfect. Go on to your next level, which for whatever you believe in is the life hereafter because you're too perfect for Earth. So some will be B's. And we'll be honest with ourselves about our A's too, because those are our areas that we've already strengthened into a good growth mindset, intrapersonally strong IQ. So I'm going to start with A, number 1, and if you hear me and it resonates, put A. Listen first to hear Judy, who's giving the B column, and when she gives hers for number 1, number 1B, number 1, if you get B, that shows your growth area. So let's just try one and see if everybody can get that or if it's understandable, Judy. Number 1, you retain contentment in spite of being disliked by some. If that's true for you, stick A down. You keep your contentment inside and out in spite of others, some disliking you. Then you're A. And Judy is now going to give you 1B.
Needs to be liked by most in order to feel content.
If that's more you, and it will be for many of us, put B. So I think we have it now. Thank you, Judy. So I will give 2A. You accept failure and exchanges. You accept when things get different because they get exchanged or you fail. 2B is?
You feel unworthy whenever we fail, so we're always seeking perfection, or often seeking to be perfect.
Thank you, Judy. The third A is you apologize and you enjoy letting go. You're willing to start again and you retain hope. That's your A column. And now 3B.
You feel stupid and without hope after making mistakes.
4A, we admit wrongdoing and we focus on crafting new starts. We're deliberate about new starts. 4B,
blame self when a thing goes wrong and fails to fix it.
5A, we accept that stuff happens and we find a new path forward. And 5B,
fear the worst will happen and leave us feeling miserable.
I'm a little too many B's today. I might have forgotten to drink my coffee. But those are my growth areas. 6A, we accept failure and then we attempt to improve the next time. No regrets for the last time. 6B,
we worry that failure will always or most of the time define us.
Number 7A, we avoid dependency or enabling reliance on others in favor of growth. 7B,
we depend on stronger people to show us our best way forward.
there's a slight difference between those two. 8A, we face problems while taking an active role always to improve the situation or mostly to improve the situation. 8B,
we deny, run from, or avoid facing inevitable problems.
Number 9A, we enjoy being alone at times and we engage some events alone purposely. Number 9B,
we fear being alone for events that would typically include others.
Number 10A, and the final one, really shows the definition in these A's of what intrapersonal is really all about. We dream beyond past injustices and we plan for a finer future. 10B,
we blame failure on our past and we see past handicaps as fixed.
So you can see how with this we've shown what the mindset of intrapersonal strong IQ is, and that's also the growth mindset. The low intrapersonal IQ is a fixed mindset. Every time we say the same story or do the same poor practice, the brain records that and files it away to be done again. Every time we make a choice for higher intrapersonal IQ, the brain also takes that into account and stores that for a more adventurous response that a growth mindset would grow and use and enjoy and laugh with. So I think now we're on the whole notion of, is it 7? The 7th concern, Judy.
Okay.
Our 7th concern is the one we'll close on now, and that concern is that we find our moods will take us to a lonely and low growth mindset way. How can we deal with that? Our moods are our choices. I'm sad to say our moods have very little to do with the world around us. Our moods are full of choices, and today our choices are for high IQ that is intrapersonal. Notice I didn't say interpersonal, which is my relationship with you, with my team here at the MIDA model, and with seniors in general. No, it's my relationship with myself, that intrapersonal IQ. Today, you've hopefully learned a new word, intrapersonal. Hopefully it's filled up with inner kindness to you, and hopefully you'll have a better day because we've discussed it together and we can teach one another. I know I have a lot I can learn from you and do learn from my team. Thank you for sharing with us a conversation about how we can all have a better growth mindset and less of a fixed mindset to enjoy our senior years even more.